This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. 22-year-old man charged in murder of 10-year-old girl. 22-year-old Tommy Powell, otherwise called Redhead, a laborer of James Street, Kingston, has been charged with the murder of 10-year-old Jazaria Tyrrell. Powell was charged yesterday following an interview in the presence of his attorney. Jazaria was shot dead at home on Fleet Street in Kingston on Thursday, December 30. Reports from the Central Kingston Police are that about 2:50 a.m., the deceased and her relatives were asleep at home when a relative reportedly smelled gasoline and heard strange sounds on the roof. The individual went to investigate and was pounced upon by intruders who attempted to gain entry to the house while firing at the occupants. When the gunfire subsided, it was discovered that young Tyrrell was shot. She was taken to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. Powell was also slapped with charges of shooting with intent and illegal possession of firearm and ammunition. His court date is being finalized. Naranda gets approval to mine near Cockpit Country in St. Anne. The Natural Resources Conservation Authority will allow Naranda bauxite to mine in the vicinity of the Cockpit Country, but says the area approved is much smaller than was applied for by the company. Naranda was seeking to mine 8,335 hectares under Special Mining Lease 173, but in May last year, Mining Minister Robert Montague said the boundaries would be reviewed following objection from stakeholders. Dr. Peter Knight, head of the NRCA, said the authority has now approved only 1,324 hectares for mining in St. Anne. That area excludes the school and the Madras community, he said, noting that the authority had used the science and empirical data to justify its decision. Mr. Knight said the National Environment and Planning Agency will mandate additional studies to inform the renewal of environmental permit over 5-year cycles and the consideration for future mining outside the approved area. He added that there will be oversight of the mining by multi-agency partners, and the National Heritage Trust will oversee protection of heritage sites in the area. A compensation mechanism is also one of the conditions. According to Dr. Knight, it must be developed and executed to address the loss of livelihoods. In addition, the Ministry of Health and Wellness will be mandated to issue terms of reference for the conduct of health impact assessment report. Another condition is that MOUs be established with the Mining and Geology Division, Forestry Division, NEPA, and the Water Resources Authority as it relates to the depth of mining and the restoration of mined areas.
The decision of the NRCA is to release an area of approximately 30, that is our estimate, an area of approximately 1,324 hectares of the 6,163 hectares located exclusively in the parish of St. Anne, and that area excludes the school and the Madras community. So we want to be very clear that what the NRCA decided after intense discussion is, and we have the science and the empirical data as to why that was possible, that a compensation mechanism be developed and executed to address the loss of livelihoods. 7, that Ministry of Health and Wellness be mandated to issue terms of reference for the conduct of a health impact assessment report. 8, that memorandum of understandings with the Mines and Geology Division, Forestry Division, Forestry Department, NEPA, and the Water Resources Authority be established in regard to the depth of mining and restoration of mined areas.
However, Hugh Dixon, Executive Director of the South Trelawney Environmental Association, said he is disappointed with the NRCA's decision. The sacrificing of 1,324 hectares is unfortunate because we really wanted to recover all of SML 173 and begin to look at an exit strategy for bauxite from Jamaica and the Cockpit Country as a wider consideration, he insisted.
The sacrificing of 1,324 hectares is unfortunate because we really wanted to recover all of SML 173 and begin to look at an exit strategy for bauxite from Jamaica and the cockpit country as a wider consideration.
Don't rule out tightening of restrictions as COVID cases spike, says medical doctor. With Jamaica's COVID-19 positivity rate now close to 50% and hospitalizations again increasing, Dr. Donald Gordon, president of the Association of General Practitioners of Jamaica, has said a tightening of restrictions should not be ruled out. The Ministry of Health earlier reported that 769 COVID cases were confirmed from 1,499 samples on Sunday. This resulted in a positivity rate of 48.4%. Hospitalizations from COVID-19 also increased by 14 to 137. Dr. Gordon told the news on Monday that based on the latest COVID-19 data, the risk of infection has increased. For the man in the street, it means that he has a much greater chance of becoming infected, and the situation in the hospitals, we have to be guided by that because it depends on the level of hospitalization, and it also depends on the age groups that are being hospitalized. You know, if you're having a lot of elderly sick persons who are being hospitalized, then that will translate to possibly a higher fatality. But if it's probably very young persons, they might be able to ride it out, he explained. 16 of the COVID-19 patients currently admitted are severely ill, while 4 are in critical condition. At the same time, a 91-year-old man from St. Anne is the latest person to die from the virus in Jamaica, pushing the death toll to 2,477. Dr. Gordon warned that the situation will have to be closely monitored in the coming days.
For the man in the street, it means that he has a much greater chance of becoming infected. And the situation in the hospitals, we have to be guided by that because it depends on the level of hospitalization. And it also depends on the age groups that are being hospitalized. You know, if you're having a lot of elderly sick persons who are being hospitalized, then that will translate to possibly a higher fatality. But if it's probably very young persons, they might be able to ride it out.
Return to face-to-face classes crucial, said Tufton. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton has defended the government's decision to proceed with face-to-face classes in schools despite the surge in COVID-19 cases. Dr. Tufton, who was interviewed on the news on Monday evening, said while there is a clear and a present danger presented by the virus, a bigger societal problem is being created if children do not return to classes after 2 years. Noting that the children have been kept away from their physical schools for 2 years, he said they have been affected badly in terms of their own learning and also even their mental health. It really comes down to how we balance the various variables, he argued, adding that this was a guiding principle accompanying the government's decision-making in the matter. He asserted that a response to COVID-19 has to change over time and that decisive action is now necessary. He did concede, however, that the decision to proceed with face-to-face classes is subject to review by the government. In that regard, he conceded that there are risks associated with the decision to return to face-to-face learning, and accordingly, he said, Cabinet will over time evaluate those risks and make decisions as to what is in the best interest of our children in this instance. Nevertheless, he said, the administration felt it was a risk worth taking at this time, because of the negative impact of keeping our children out of the classroom.
A lot has happened since then in terms of the response, in terms of the protocols that have been put in place, tried and tested, the vaccination that have been made available. Some have taken it, some have not. Those who have been infected and have recovered would have built up some amount of immunity. And not to mention the side effects of the restrictions over an extended period of time, which has had an impact, not least of which on our children who have been kept out of the classroom, have been affected badly in terms of their own learning and also even their mental health. So it really comes down to how we balance the different variables. We are responding. We are continuing to encourage the different types of responses, and we are taking precautions at the level of the schools to ensure that our children and staff are protected. Up to this point, the government is standing by that position. I'm a part of the government, and we provide technical advice around the protocols within the schools. There are risks. There's no doubt that there are risks. As we go along, I'm sure the cabinet will evaluate those risks and make decisions as to what is in the best interest of our children in this instance. But for now, we felt that it was a risk worth taking because of the negative impact of keeping our children out of the classroom.
No significant workplace disruption so far from latest COVID-19 surge, said JEF. The Jamaica Employers Federation is reporting that the surge in COVID-19 cases has so far not caused any significant dislocation for its members. Only a small number of members have reported that workers have tested positive for the virus. The Federation's president, David Wan, has noted, however, that the data being relied on at this point is purely based on initial feedback. The Ministry of Health and Wellness reported a 48.4% COVID-19 positivity rate from its testing on Sunday.
We've had feedback from a very small amount of companies who've had some cases in the 2-3 range, and they've, chosen to have work from home where possible and are watching it, but we haven't had a major report of dislocations. Haven't had that. Very minor so far. So, that's our membership. It's not the general public. I can't tell you about the full universe.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.